The rain falls like silver threads over the cliffs of Ayr, the sea below a vast, breathing darkness. Each drop seems to carry a whisper, a lament that has wandered centuries to find its way back home. The gull's cry splits the wind like a blade, echoing through the folds of mist that crawl across the ancient stones. Monoliths rise, tall, watchful, scarred with spiral carvings etched by hands that never knew kings. Moss clings to their cold skin, soft and green, as though time itself tries to cradle the memory of what once was. The air hums faintly, a low vibration, as though the island remembers its own heart still beating somewhere beneath the sodden earth. A woman kneels there, motionless, save for the trembling of her breath. Her wool cloak, heavy with rain, clings to her shoulders like mourning cloth. Her hand is pressed flat against the ground, fingers tracing the grooves between roots and stones. Beneath her palm she feels a pulse, faint, rhythmic, not her own. The earth breathes beneath her, slow and deep, as if something vast and dreaming stirs beneath the soil. The scent of heather drifts around her, mingled with the iron tang of the sea. Lightning flashes, carving her shadow against the stones, a fleeting ghost in the stormlight. Her eyes are closed, her lips move. The words that leave them are older than scripture, older than war. Old Gaelic, spoken like a secret remembered in sleep. Her voice trembles, not from fear, but from recognition, as if her tongue has found again the taste of a forgotten truth. This is where the old stories begin, in rain and mist, before history chained the world to reason, when gods still bled and the wind still carried their names, before men built churches and called silence sacred. They say the first to come were the Tuatha Dé Danann, radiant and terrible, not gods, not men, but something between. They came not from across the sea, but through it, their ships cloaked in storm cloud and light. Their weapons were not iron, but star metal fallen from the heavens, blades that sang when drawn, shields that gleamed with shifting constellations. When they stepped upon Ayr's soil, the grass bent as though in reverence. Yet beauty is never without shadow. With them came pride, and with pride, envy. In the hollows of the land, other tribes had already laid claim. The Fir Bolg, shaped by toil and earth, and the Fomorians, twisted as the sea's deepest currents. The Tuatha called themselves divine, children of Danu, the mother of rivers. But to the others they were invaders cloaked in light. So the plains ran red beneath a sun half hidden by storm. Spears clashed in the valleys, and chants rose like smoke. The air was thick with cries of defiance, of dying. It is said the rivers themselves turned bitter with iron, and the crows learned the taste of kings. The Danann triumphed, but the victory was hollow, for in every death a shadow lingered, the whisper of something darker, growing in the cracks between worlds. And still the woman at the stones whispers. The rain soaks her hair, clinging to her skin like the breath of the sea. Around her neck hangs a pendant, a spiral of bronze worn thin by time. The same spiral carved into the stones before her, the symbol of eternity, of return. It catches the faint light of lightning and gleams like an eye just opened.
Easy, Adanu, she breathes. Rise, O Danu. Her voice carries through the storm, soft yet unyielding. The wind answers her, curling around her like unseen hands. For a heartbeat, the rain stills. The world holds its breath. Then a shimmer. It glides across the standing stones, faint but undeniable, like moonlight rippling through water. The carvings glow, veins of silver tracing through moss and lichen. And in that brief illumination, she sees them, figures moving within the light, faces both human and divine, eyes deep as rivers, sorrowful as dawn. They look upon her not as stranger, but as one of their own. A tear escapes her eye, though she does not know why. Perhaps it is memory, perhaps it is grief, for all that has been lost since they fell silent, since men turned their backs to the old songs and named their own gods. The shimmer fades, the light drains from the carvings, the rain returns harder now, as if the sky itself cannot bear the weight of what it saw. She stands slowly, her body trembling with exhaustion. Her hand lingers once more on the stone, as though bidding farewell to a lover. Then she turns toward the cliffs, where the sea roars like something alive. Lightning dances upon the horizon, and for an instant she sees, or believes she sees, the shapes of ships sailing within the clouds, their sails woven from mist and flame. The old ones returning, or perhaps never gone at all. Behind her, the monoliths stand silent once more, but deep within their hearts something has awakened, the faint hum of an ancient pulse. The woman begins to walk, her feet sinking into the wet earth. Each step is a prayer, each breath a memory. She does not look back, for she knows the old powers are listening again, and that the world she walks now teeters between dawn and dusk, between faith and forgetting. Somewhere beyond the hills, fires burn. New kings are rising, men who will carve borders into land once bound only by myth. Iron will replace star metal. Churches will rise upon sacred mounds, and the language of the gods will fade into whispers carried only by the wind. But for now, here, in this storm, something stirs beneath the soil of Ir, something vast and patient. As the woman disappears into the mist, the camera lingers upon the stones, slick, glistening, alive. A single drop of water runs down the carved spiral and falls to the ground, vanishing into the grass. It is said that when rain touches earth in the right place, the gods remember, and sometimes they answer. The thunder rolls out to sea, fading into the sound of waves. The world exhales. Soon another dawn will come, one ruled by men, not myth. But in the heart of the land, beneath the green hills and ancient stones, the old ones sleep lightly, waiting for their names to be spoken again. A low mist rolls across the valley at dawn. It moves like breath, slow, deliberate, alive. Beneath its veil, the world holds its silence, waiting for the day to begin. Cows stir in their pens, hooves shifting in the damp straw. Their breath steams in the pale light, ghostly ribbons rising to meet the chill air. Beyond them, the ring fort sleeps no longer. The thatched roofs glisten with dew, beads of silver trembling on straw, while the faint smoke of peat fires curls upward, dark and sweet, carrying the scent of hearth and hunger.
The sea is near. You can taste it, salt and iron, the brine of something eternal. The wind brings its voice, a low, ceaseless murmur, as though the gods themselves whisper just beyond hearing. At the fort's heart, where the stones form a circle older than memory, stands the druid. His beard is the color of ash, his cloak, once white, now frayed like a storm-torn sail. The dawn catches upon the bronze tip of his staff, making it gleam like a blade. His eyes, pale, sharp, unblinking, lift toward the sky, where clouds gather like slow-moving beasts. He speaks, not in the tongue of men, but in one that belongs to the river and the wind. The sound of it trembles through the mist, each syllable a chord that seems to wake the earth itself. Around him the warriors kneel, men with arms scarred by years of war, bronze torques gleaming at their throats. Women, too, fierce and silent, their hair braided with bone and leather. They kneel not from reverence alone, but from fear. The fear that even courage must bow before fate. The druid's voice lowers. He dips the staff into a bowl of milk set before him, watching as ripples spread across the surface. The warriors watch too, their faces taut, eyes darting between the bowl and the sky. The old man murmurs the name of Lug, the Bright One, the bringer of light and skill and victory. His words are soft, but they carry weight, like the echo of thunder far away. From the woods beyond, a raven croaks, harsh and sudden. The sound cuts through the air like a blade. No one moves. The druid's gaze lifts, and for a heartbeat, the world seems to hold its breath. Then he nods, once, solemnly. The omen is taken. The gods have spoken. A murmur ripples through the gathered crowd. Some cross their hearts in the old way, touching brow, mouth, chest, and earth. Others simply stare at the bird, now perched upon a branch, its black feathers glistening with dew. The druid turns to the warriors, raising his staff high. "Go," he whispers, voice low but steady, "and feed the land." They rise, slow, reluctant, yet bound by oath. The clatter of bronze greaves, the creak of leather, the muted jangle of weapons half drawn. The air thickens with the scent of oil and sweat, and something else,
anticipation, sharp as iron. At the edge of the clearing, unseen by most, a young girl watches. Barefoot, her feet press into the wet grass, cold biting her skin. Her cloak hangs heavy on her small frame, a hand-me-down of some elder now gone. In her hands she holds a carved wooden flute, its surface dark with age, etched with runes she cannot yet read. She watches the druid's hand tremble as he lowers his staff. She watches the warriors' faces, pale beneath their war paint, eyes glinting like coals in the mist. She does not yet know what is about to unfold, only that the air tastes different now, thicker, charged, like the moment before lightning finds the earth. Somewhere deep within her, a thought stirs, soft, uncertain. Remember this.
The first horn sounds. It is long and low, a moan drawn from the belly of the valley. The warriors move like a tide breaking its banks. Shields lifted, swords unsheathed, voices rising into a raw, wordless cry. They march toward the ridge where the mist swallows them whole. The girl flinches as the sound grows distant, muffled by the fog, until all that remains is the beating of her heart and the far-off call of the raven. The druid stands alone now, his eyes fixed on the horizon. His staff trembles slightly in his hand, though whether from age or sorrow, none can tell. He murmurs something, perhaps a prayer, perhaps a farewell, and then turns toward the girl. For an instant their eyes meet. There is no smile, no comfort, only the weight of knowing. He nods once, a gesture both heavy and final. Then he disappears into the mist. The girl clutches her flute tighter. The air is still. The world seems to lean in, listening. And then, from beyond the ridge, comes the sound. A clash of metal, a scream, the thunder of hooves. The mist shivers with it, the way a body recoils from pain. Birds rise in sudden flocks, dark shapes tearing upward through the white air. The girl cannot see the battle, but she can hear it. The chaos, the breaking, the end of something vast. Her eyes fill with tears she does not understand. She raises the flute to her lips, hesitating. The wood is cold. Her breath trembles against it. She plays one note, clear, thin, fragile. It breaks the silence like glass. The sound drifts over the field, over the dying cries, over the rain that begins to fall. It carries through the trees, across the sea, a single thread of sound against the storm. By dusk, the mist will clear. The grass will be red. The crows will circle low, feasting. The ring fort will burn, its smoke rising to join the clouds. But that single note will remain, echoing in memory long after the world has moved on. The girl will survive. She will wander through the ashes, barefoot, her cloak heavy with smoke. She will bury what names she can remember, though the earth will soon forget them. And when the night comes, she will play again, not for the dead, but for what was once alive. They will call her the keeper of stories, though she will not think herself such.
She will say she only remembers the sound of the raven, the smell of oak smoke, the taste of rain. But her song will outlast kings. It will become legend. As the last light fades from the valley, the flute's song drifts once more through the air, a thin wisp of sound swallowed by the wind. Far away, beyond the sea, fires burn on another shore. New voices rise, foreign tongues, foreign gods. The world is changing. The mist thickens again, and with it the promise of another dawn. Under the canopy of the sacred oaks, the air is alive with smoke and song. Shafts of sunlight pierce the drifting haze, painting the grove in streaks of gold and shadow. Each beam flickers against the curling incense of crushed herbs, juniper, mugwort, yarrow, mingling with the heavy copper tang of sacrifice. The ground is soft and wet beneath bare feet, earth drinking in what has been given.
Around the clearing, the druids stand in a circle, cloaked in the colors of moss and bark. Their voices rise and fall in slow rhythm, the chant older than memory, echoing like wind through a cavern. The sound is both beautiful and terrible, a pulse that seems to draw the forest inward, closer, listening. At their center, a cauldron bubbles over a low fire. Its iron belly breathes, steam coiling upward like the spirit of a sleeping god. The flames beneath it whisper and snap, licking at the blackened wood. Above, the branches of the oaks sway, their leaves whispering secrets to one another, ancient as the bones buried beneath their roots. Beside the cauldron stands a woman draped in green wool. Her hair is bound with twine, her eyes dark with purpose, eyes that seem to see through the smoke, through the veil of what is and what will be. Her name will fade, as all mortal names do, but her craft will remain, carried in fragments, in the old stories of women who brewed fate in cups and called storms with their breath. In her hand she holds a silver knife. The blade catches a sliver of sunlight, gleaming sharp and clean. She murmurs softly, her voice a thread between worlds. The words are a song, a prayer, an invocation to Brigid, the goddess of flame, of poetry, of the forge where both words and weapons are born. The cauldron hisses in response, the surface ripples. A scent rises, sweet at first, then bitter. The druid's chanting falters, something shifts in the air, as if the forest itself leans closer to listen. Then, a flutter of wings. A wren lands upon a branch above her, so small its weight barely bends the twig. Its feathers glint brown and gold in the light. It sings, a bright, defiant trill that pierces through the droning chant, clear and pure. The sound is startling in its simplicity. The woman lifts her gaze. For a heartbeat, her eyes soften. A sign, she breathes, though no one answers. She plucks a final sprig of rowan from the bundle at her belt. Its red berries gleam like drops of blood. She casts it into the cauldron.
The bubbling slows, the steam thickens, and the sound of the forest falls away. No bird song, no wind, only the slow, steady hiss of dying flame. The druids fall silent, the circle holds. In the smoke above the cauldron, shapes begin to move, vague at first, like ripples in water. Then clearer. Antlers, wings, the curling spine of some forgotten beast, the eyes of wolves, bright as stars. For a moment, it is as if the past itself has come alive again, stepping through the veil between worlds. The woman does not flinch. Her lips move in rhythm with the images, though no sound escapes them. The smoke trembles, and then, as though stirred by a hidden breath, it changes. The shapes collapse inward, reforming into visions, not of beasts, but of men. She sees the plains beyond the grove, sees warriors locked in battle, their spears dark with blood, their cries devoured by wind. She sees smoke rising from villages, the crackle of burning thatch. She sees kings crowned and uncrowned, the clash of banners beneath a gray sky. Then iron walls, foreign tongues, an empire built on ash. Her hand tightens around the knife.
The druids see it too, flashes only, but enough to make them shudder. One falls to his knees, whispering a name that will never be written. The woman stands motionless, the light flickering across her face like a fading fire. The visions deepen. The cauldron's surface gleams like a mirror, showing 1,000 years yet unborn. Ships of oak cutting through strange seas, crosses raised where oaks once stood, the tongues of gods silenced beneath stone. She sees her island divided, its songs forgotten, its sacred groves felled. She sees the last druid whispering prayers to trees that no longer answer. And yet, within all that ruin, a flicker of light. She sees a child by a hearth, learning the stories her people once sang. A hand carving spirals into stone. A woman in exile, speaking old words to the wind, believing she is the last to remember. And she sees, though faintly, that memory itself endures. The woman steps closer to the cauldron. The fire beneath it is almost gone, reduced to embers glowing red as heart blood. She reaches her hand into the ash and stirs. The air is hot, the touch burns, but she does not pull away. When she withdraws her hand, her skin is streaked with gray and soot. Slowly, she lifts her fingers to her forehead and draws a spiral, the oldest of signs, a circle that never ends, a mark of death and return, of forgetting and remembering. Around her, the druids begin to chant again, low, mournful, like the sound of waves against the shore. The woman closes her eyes. In the distance, thunder rolls. The battle beyond the forest still rages, men striking, falling, dying.
But here, in this grove, the world stands still. Time folds upon itself. The last spark in the fire fades, and for a heartbeat, all is darkness. Then, from the ashes, a single wisp of smoke curls upward, thin, silvery, alive. It rises past the branches, through the canopy, into the light. The wren follows it, wings beating fast, vanishing into the sky. The woman watches it go. Her knife, once gleaming, now dull with soot, rests in the grass. Around her, the circle of druids slowly dissolves into shadow, their chanting fading into the rustle of the wind. When she finally speaks, it is barely a whisper. So be it. The words drift into the smoke, carried away on the breath of the dying fire. By nightfall, the grove will be empty. Only the scent of herbs and ash will remain, and the spiral drawn in soot upon a fallen stone. Yet the spell is done. The gods have spoken. Far beyond the trees, the clash of men continues, bronze against bone, faith against fire. But deep beneath the roots of the oaks, something ancient has begun to turn once more. A promise long buried, waking in the dark. And as the stars emerge, cold and unblinking, a faint wind carries the scent of salt and storm, the first whisper of the world to come. The wind is restless tonight, no moon to steady it, only the dark breathing of the sea and the whisper of waves curling against the stones. A lone figure moves along the shoreline, his cloak flapping like tattered wings in the salt-thick air. Each step sinks into the wet sand, leaving shallow prints soon swallowed by the tide.
He carries a harp, carved from ash wood, pale as bone, its frame worn smooth by years of hands and grief. The runes along its edge have almost faded, but not completely. Some things even time cannot erase. He stops beside a tide pool, where the stars tremble in the black water. The world around him is soundless, save for the slow rhythm of the tide, that deep and endless breathing, like the pulse of something greater than gods. He kneels, his fingers trace the strings. The first note falls into the night. It is small, but it carries, like a cry swallowed by mist, like memory refusing to die. Then another follows, and another. The melody takes shape, rising above the hiss of the surf. It is both song and prayer, a lament for what once was. He sings of the children of Lear. The story is old, older than kingdoms, older than stone. He sings of the father, proud and kind, whose heart was torn by envy, of the stepmother, Iofi, whose beauty hid the venom of the gods, of her curse that turned his children, Fionnuala, Ioth, Fiachra, Con, into swans of white,
condemned to wander the lakes and seas for 900 years. He sings of the father's tears, of his voice breaking upon their feathers as they fled, of white wings brushing frozen water, of songs echoing across centuries of storm and snow. The sea listens. Each wave seems to rise and pause, as if remembering. Foam curls around his boots. His breath clouds before him, though the night is not cold. It is ancient. He plays on, the notes trembling through the fog, carrying across the black mirror of the tide. Then, through the mist, movement, shapes faint and ghostly, gliding upon the waves. He stills his hand. 4 swans, pale as the first frost. Their wings sweep the water in slow rhythm, leaving trails of silver light. Their eyes catch the dim glow of the stars, luminous, sorrowful, knowing. He forgets to breathe. The song falters, hanging unfinished in the air. One of the swans lifts its head, and for an instant the world narrows to the space between them. Man and myth, bound by the same ache. The wind shifts, the sea sighs. The swans circle once, their feathers brushing the water with a sound like silk torn in twilight. Then they vanish, not in flight, not in fear, but as though they were never there at all. Only the ripples remain, fading into blackness. The harpist lowers his hands. His chest feels hollow, full of something vast and unspoken. He does not know if what he saw was vision or memory, if the tale has returned to him, or if he has wandered into it. But the sea gives no answer, only the endless hum of its turning. He gathers driftwood and flint, his hands trembling as he builds a small fire upon the wet sand. The flames rise reluctantly, licking at the darkness, casting wavering shadows across his face. The light gleams upon the harp's surface, reflecting in the runes that have survived time's wear. He sits before the fire, staring into it as though it might speak. The scent of smoke mingles with salt and seaweed. The wind carries sparks into the mist. He can still hear it, faint, far off, the sound of singing. Thin voices, high and mournful, threading through the rhythm of the waves. It is a child's song, wordless and pure.
He presses a hand to his chest, as though to hold the moment there, to stop it from slipping away. He knows this is what the stories mean. Not truth, not lie, but the space between. The wound where memory becomes myth. The place where sorrow is turned into song, so that it might be born and remembered. He takes his knife and carves a small spiral into the harp's frame, near the base where his thumb rests. The motion is slow, reverent. The spiral is the symbol of return, the old mark of the druids, the endless cycle of loss and renewal. When he finishes, he runs his thumb along the groove. For them, he whispers, for all who vanish. The fire sputters, sparks drift into the sea,
hiss and die. The waves retreat, pulling at the sand around his knees. The stars seem closer now, reflected in the black sheen of water and wet stone. He listens once more. The faint singing is gone, swallowed by the tide, but in its absence there is peace. Not silence, but stillness, a space wide enough to breathe. He closes his eyes. The harp rests beside him, its strings catching the faintest tremor of wind, humming softly, as if remembering the tune on their own. His head tilts toward the sound, and for a heartbeat, the world feels whole again. The night holds its breath. Then the waves return, gentle and rhythmic, washing over the footprints he left behind. When dawn comes, it will find only driftwood and ash upon the shore, and a single spiral carved into a forgotten harp. But the story will live. It will travel, reshaped by every voice that dares to speak it, carried through generations like the sea's eternal murmur. Some will say the harpist met the swans of Lear. Others will say he dreamed them. Both will be right. For in every age, when the wind moves over dark waters, there are those who will listen and hear the faint echo of wings brushing against the heart of the world. And far beyond the horizon, where the sea darkens toward the west, another storm gathers. The tide of gods and men is shifting. The old songs will fade, giving way to new prayers, new empires. But for this moment, here upon this moonless shore, the old world still breathes, and its song has not yet been forgotten. The fog lifts slowly, not as if rising, but as if being breathed away by something ancient and unseen. From the sleeping moor, the stones begin to emerge, gray giants, hunched and half swallowed by bracken, their surfaces slick with dew and memory. Between them, the earth glistens, cold, dark, waiting. A stag stands at the circle's edge. Steam drifts from its nostrils like ghost smoke, curling into the pale dawn. Its antlers crown it with the weight of ages, a silent witness to what men still fear to name. Its eyes catch the first gold of morning, steady and unjudging. Around its hooves the ground is soft with moss and the offerings of the forgotten, torques eaten by rust, glass beads clouded by damp, small bronze knives dulled to silence. From far across the moor, a shepherd's horn calls once, thin, mournful, distant. Then all sound dies again. Within the stone ring, a man kneels. His tunic is torn, his wrists bound by coarse hempen rope. The mist clings to his hair. His breath breaks in uneven clouds. He does not struggle. He has long passed the hour for struggle. Around him, the druids move like shadows through smoke, their robes heavy with rain, their voices low and rhythmic. One stands before him, older than the rest, his face carved by years and wind. In his hands he holds a cup carved from horn, polished to a dull shine. The liquid within it is dark, thicker than wine, heavier than water. It smells of iron and oak sap and the long rot of the earth. The man's head bows, his lips tremble, his heart hammers like hooves against the walls of his chest. Yet when the druid begins to speak, he lifts his gaze, drawn to the sound. Words not meant for ears, but for soil, sky, and the spirit of the rivers that run beneath both. They call upon Danu, mother of waters, keeper of seed and sorrow, whose mercy feeds and devours alike. They ask her to balance the scales, to turn the sickness away, to let the crops breathe again beneath the ash of the plague. The man kneeling understands little of the words, but he knows why he is here. The fever had taken his brother's sons, the winter had blackened the barley. His name had been chosen, drawn by lot beneath the moon. There is no hatred in it, only necessity. He closes his eyes. He sees his wife spinning flax beside the hearth, her hair lit red by the fire. He hears the soft creak of the spindle, the hush of her humming. He sees the small loaf she baked before dawn, left on the table's edge, still warm when he walked away. He sees their child asleep beneath the wool, one hand curled against his cheek. He breathes in once, the damp air heavy with smoke and moss. The druid lifts the blade. It catches the faint light, trembling as if alive. When it descends, there is no scream. Only the rush of wind through the heather, the sound of something leaving, not torn, but released. Above, wings beat once, a crow breaking from the fog, circling the circle, then vanishing into the endless white. The druids do not speak. They move with the solemn grace of those who understand both death and the life that demands it. The horn cup is emptied into the soil, the rope placed beside it. They bury them beneath a cairn of river stones, each one cold, each one chosen. The earth drinks deeply. The ritual ends. The stag is gone. Only its tracks remain, pressed into the wet ground, twin crescents that lead toward the trees. The sky brightens. Rain begins, thin and cleansing. It falls over the stones, over the blood, over the bowed heads of those who linger. The water threads through the soil, mingling with what was given. Soon the circle is empty once more. The mist returns, soft and slow, reclaiming what was seen. Days pass. The wind smooths the ground. The moss grows back, thicker than before. The cairn settles into the land like a wound that has learned to hide its pain. Birds nest between the stones. Wildflowers bloom along the edges. Life, as always, forgets and remembers. But something remains, a weight,
a whisper. Travelers who pass through in later ages, shepherds, soldiers, pilgrims, feel it without knowing why. Some say the air is colder here. Some say their dreams change. None linger long. They cannot know what lies beneath their feet, the vow sealed in blood and rain, the plea to gods long fallen silent. Centuries turn, kingdoms rise, and men build churches over the bones of gods. The old names fade into dust and folklore. The druids are hunted, their groves burned, their chants called witchcraft. Yet beneath the bracken and the moss, the earth remembers the sound of their prayers. Even now, when storms roll across the moor and lightning cracks the sky, the circle stirs. The stones sweat, the heather shivers. Crows gather upon the cairn, their black eyes catching the flash of the storm. Some say they are drawn by instinct, others that they remember. And when dawn returns, quiet and gray, the land seems changed, as if it has breathed something old, something restless, back into the wind. The world above moves on, blind to what turns beneath it. But there are always those who listen, wanderers, poets, the keepers of lost fires, who stop when the mist rises, who hear the hum beneath the silence, and feel the weight of all that was given to keep the seasons turning. The man's name is forgotten, his wife, his child, their house of wattle and smoke, all gone. Yet his breath still lingers in the soil. His blood still feeds the barley that grows on distant fields. In this way, sacrifice becomes memory. Memory becomes myth. And myth, in time, becomes the quiet pulse of the earth itself. Soon the age of druids will fade. The old gods will drown beneath the bells of new faiths. But the stones will remain, silent and unyielding, witnesses to every creed and every fall. And somewhere beyond the horizon, another chapter begins, where fire replaces offering, and the old rituals turn to heresy under the gaze of kings. But for now, in this hour before history begins, the fog settles once more, the crow's cry fades, and the moor exhales its mist like a prayer unanswered. The circle sleeps, and the earth keeps its secrets. The rain had stopped, but the forest still wept. Drops slid from the high canopy, whispering through the ferns, striking the stream in gentle rhythms, a heartbeat of the earth. The air smelled of iron and resin, of blood washed half clean, of something ancient watching. A young warrior knelt in the shallows, his hands submerged in the cold current. His palms trembled as crimson threads unfurled from them, curling like smoke through the water, then vanishing into the stream's glassy skin. He stared down at his reflection, a ghost born of dusk and memory, and did not recognize the eyes staring back. Behind him, the world lay broken. Spears jutted from the soil like ribs. Helmets half buried in mud glimmered with dying light. The cries of the wounded had long since dissolved into silence, leaving only the soft hum of the forest
reclaiming what men had tried to own. He had fought beneath the banner of Khan of the 100 Battles, a name that already sounded like legend, even as the blood beneath it was still warm. Victory, they had called it. But victory, he realized, had the taste of rust and ash. He rose slowly, the stream swirling around his knees, washing away the last stain of the fight. His breath came heavy, visible in the chill of evening. The forest pressed close, endless, alive, a cathedral of green shadow and damp breath. In his hand he held a pendant. Bronze coiled into 3 spirals, worn smooth by the touch of years. It caught the last light of dusk as if remembering the sun. He turned it in his palm, the cool metal grounding him. His mother's voice came back to him, faint, trembling through the folds of memory. Wear this when you forget who you are. He had forgotten. Somewhere between the cries and the steel, between the chant of men and the silence that followed, he had lost the thread of himself. The wind shifted. The forest seemed to listen. He looked up, and there, across the clearing, a deer stepped into the open. Its coat glowed faintly in the gloom, silvered by mist. Its hooves made no sound on the moss. The young warrior froze, his hand tightening around the pendant. The deer's eyes met his, deep, steady, unafraid. For a moment, all of creation held its breath. The forest, the stream, the shadows, everything waited. And then, gently, he lowered his hand. The deer blinked once, as if in understanding, then turned and slipped back into the trees. The leaves closed behind it, the sound no louder than a sigh. He stood alone again, but something had changed. He could not name it, yet he felt it, a pull, soft and wordless, towards something beyond war and hunger, beyond banners and names. The forest darkened. The crows began to call. He fastened his cloak, the fabric stiff with dried blood, and began to walk. Each step sank into the loam with a dull weight, as if the forest were testing his resolve. His sword hung at his side, its edge nicked and dulled, but still it gleamed faintly, a reminder of what he had done and what he would yet do. The stream ran beside him, its voice quiet, unjudging. It ran red for a while, then clear again. He followed it deeper into the wood, past fallen trunks carpeted in moss, past the bones of trees older than kings. The night gathered around him like a cloak. Owls called. Somewhere distant, thunder murmured over the hills. He walked until the last hint of the battlefield faded from sight. Only the forest remained, vast, indifferent, eternal. He stopped when he reached a clearing where the moonlight fell like frost upon the ground. There he sank to his knees once more, not in exhaustion, but in surrender. The pendant hung against his chest, warm now from his skin. He pressed it to his lips. "Mother," he whispered, though the word barely left him. No answer came, only the sighing of leaves, the endless breath of the world. He stayed there a long while, until the silence felt less like emptiness and more like a presence. And then, slowly, he understood. He was not the hero the songs would one day make him. Not yet. Perhaps not ever. He was only a man who had survived. And survival, in these times, was already half a miracle. The forest would remember him not as a conqueror, but as another fleeting echo, another soul who bled into its soil, another name swallowed by the moss. But for now, he was alive, and the world, though scarred and trembling, still breathed.
A soft wind brushed through the trees, carrying the scent of rain and smoke. Somewhere in that wind, a whisper moved, faint as dream, old as earth. The gods were listening. He lifted his face to the sky. Above the branches, the clouds were parting, revealing stars like cold embers. They seemed to pulse, slow, steady, patient, as though waiting for him to rise again. He would, he must. The songs that would one day bear his name were still unspoken, the wars still unwon, the betrayals still waiting. But this night, this single heartbeat of stillness would remain the thread that tied him to himself. The stream murmured on, winding between roots and stone, carrying his reflection away. Somewhere beyond the forest, the fires of Khan's camp still burned, beacons of triumph or warning. He turned toward their distant glow, his shadow long and uncertain against the moss. And as he walked, the first faint echo of a horn rose over the hills, low, haunting, familiar. It called not for battle, but for remembrance. The young warrior paused, listening. Then, with a final glance toward the trees, he moved toward the sound, into the darkness, into legend, into the waiting jaws of history. Behind him, the forest sighed once, and the stream ran clear again, forgiving, as all things living must be. Twilight settles like an old grief upon the ruined hill fort. Stones once raised by hands, now dusted with moss and silence. The wind moves through their broken mouths, whispering in forgotten tongues, half prayer, half warning. The air smells of peat smoke, damp soil, and something older, something waiting. Up the slope, where brambles clutch at her cloak, a woman climbs. Her breath trembles in the fading light. The hem of her dress is torn by thorns, stained by mud and rain, but still she ascends, drawn not by duty, but by memory. In her arms a bundle of linen, bound with care, carried as one might carry a child or a wound. When she reaches the crest, the world opens before her, a sprawl of mist-wrapped valleys, of dying light and drifting smoke. The ruins rise around her like bones of a buried god. She kneels among them, laying her burden upon the earth. With slow, reverent hands, she unwraps the cloth. Inside lies a sword.
a hilt of gold and ashwood, scorched black as if by divine fire. The blade, long gone, shattered, lost, but still heavy with presence, with memory. She stares at it as if meeting the gaze of something alive. For this was once the blade of Tuatha Silverhand, first king of the Tuatha Dé Danann, a relic of the age when gods bled, when the wind itself bent to will. She brushes the ash from its grip. The metal is cold, yet beneath the chill lingers a heartbeat of warmth, like embers buried under snow. Her fingers tremble. Anam, she whispers, soul. The word drifts into the mist, swallowed by the sighing of the wind. All around her, the ruins seem to stir. The air hums faintly, as though remembering. A raven cries, its echo carried down through the hollow halls of the dead. In the distance, thunder grumbles, a voice older than language, older than time.
The woman closes her eyes. Her lips begin to move, softly, uncertainly, reciting a lament in the old tongue. A song once sung by her grandmother beside a hearth of turf and stone. Unsay of Wilshied, the ones who walked in light. Their names are seeds beneath the soil. Their echoes feed the rain. Her voice catches, breaks, yet still she sings, and the melody lingers like smoke after flame. She presses the sword into the ground, blade first, driving it deep into the damp earth. The soil yields with a soft sigh. For a heartbeat, light seeps from the wound, a faint, ghostly glow that pulses like a buried heart. The air thickens, the scent of iron and storm deepens. Then the light fades. Only the wind remains. The woman bows her head, hands trembling over the earth, as if to seal a pact. She rats the sword again, draws the linen close, and whispers, "Rest now." She rises slowly, the weight of centuries pressing against her back. Her eyes are distant, haunted, as though she sees not the ruin before her, but what once was. Banners unfurled in sunlight, men shouting in joy and terror. The clash of bronze and bone. She sees a king with a silver hand raise this very sword toward the dawn, and hears faintly the roar of gods fading into the sea. A breath of wind catches her cloak as she turns away. Behind her, the ravens gather, black silhouettes against a bleeding sky. Their wings slice the twilight, sharp, deliberate, unending. They croak softly, the sound rough as gravel and sorrow, as though bearing witness to an oath renewed. Down below, in the valley, the first lamps of a village begin to flicker to life. 1,000 years have passed since Nuada's reign, yet the same fire burns in each small flame. Smoke curls upward like the soul of the past, rising through the body of the present. Prayer and memory entwined. The woman pauses at the edge of the hill, looking down upon the lights,
Her breath clouds in the chill air. She whispers something the wind cannot carry. A name, perhaps, or a promise. Then she descends into the deepening dark. The hill stands silent once more. But deep beneath the soil, where roots tangle with bone and iron, something stirs, faint as a pulse in the earth. The sword hums softly in its shallow grave, echoing the heartbeat of a world that refuses to forget. And though the storm breaks to the east, and the valley drowns in rain, a single flame endures, the light of a hearth, of a home, of memory refusing to die. The ravens take flight, wheeling over the ruins like black omens cast against the sky. One feather drifts downward, turning in the wind, landing upon the spot where the sword sleeps. By dawn, it will be gone, carried by rain into soil, by soil into seed, by seed into story. And somewhere, far beyond the valley, another fire will be lit. Another voice will remember. The world moves on, but not in forgetfulness. In the distance, thunder rolls once more, not as warning, but as awakening. The age of gods may be gone, but their echoes are not. They breathe still in the hills, the rivers, and the hearts of those who remember.
The storm fades into silence. The screen lingers on the ruined hill fort, empty, ancient, eternal. Then slowly a new sound, the first cry of dawn, the hiss of fire, the whisper of steel being drawn once more. Transition to the next chapter, where legend begins to stir again among the living, as kingdoms rise from ashes and men seek to claim what the gods left behind. The slow drip of water. A single flame trembles. Stone breathes. Beneath the abbey, the air is older than prayer. It smells of damp lichen, wax, and secrets left to rot. Shadows cling to the vaulted ribs of stone, whispering the names of the dead through cracks no mason ever sealed. In the stillness, a candle flickers beside an ancient well, its light trembling on the wet stone like a pulse trying not to fade. A monk kneels there, his robe soaked from the rain outside, his breath a pale mist in the chill air. The water below is black as pitch, reflecting nothing, not the flame, not the face bent above it. His fingers tremble as they clutch a parchment, its edges frayed, its letters scored deep in ogham, a script from when gods had many names, and men feared to speak them aloud. He should not reading it, and yet he does. His lips move, soundless but certain, forming syllables the church forbade, tones that feel more like breathing than speech. The sound they make, though faint, ripples across the stones like wind stirring ashes long cold. I'm day, I'm Dochain. The candle bends toward him, flame stretching like a soul drawn to sin. Outside, rain lashes the cloister, drumming against the roof in a rhythm both holy and savage. Within, the monk's voice falters. A shiver of something unseen trembles through the floor. A murmur deep beneath the flagstones, not quite sound, not quite silence. The monk freezes, his eyes dart toward the well. The water stirs. He grips his rosary. The beads are slick and cold, like stones dredged from graves. Fear presses behind his ribs, yet curiosity roots him to the spot, a pull as old as Eden, as ruinous. He leans closer, and there, beneath the surface, light moves, not a reflection, but life. It coils and unfurls like breath beneath glass. Shapes emerge, faint and terrible. A face without age, neither man nor woman. Its eyes hollow as the moon, its crown woven from reeds and river shadow. The monk's heart pounds. It speaks, not in words, but in memory. The chamber thickens, the air growing heavy as water. The candle gutters, drowning in its own wax. What fills the room is not sound, but knowing. A flood of meaning older than scripture, older than sin. He understands nothing, and yet he weeps. The voice rises from the well like mist, carrying with it the scent of rain on soil, of moss and blood, of birth and burial entwined. It is the hymn of a world before walls, when trees were cathedrals and rivers the veins of the earth. He clutches the parchment, desperate to anchor himself, but the ink begins to bleed. Black veins spread across the page, twisting, pulsing, alive. The words unravel, dissolving into the air like smoke. He gasps, drops it. The parchment drifts downward, a white moth in darkness, and touches the water. At once it dissolves, devoured by the depths. The face watches him, still, unblinking. A whisper stirs at the edge of hearing, soft as a mother's voice, terrible as prophecy. Then silence. The monk stumbles backward. The rosary slips from his hand, beads scattering like bones across the stone. His breath rasps in the darkness. Behind him, the candle flares one last time, then dies. Darkness folds around him like a cloak. He flees. Footsteps echo up the spiral stair, each one louder than the last, until they vanish into the upper halls, where the brothers sleep and dream of God. Below, the silence returns. The rain stops. For a long time, there is nothing but the slow, rhythmic drip of water from the roof. But deep in the well, deep beneath the foundations where no light can reach, a faint sound begins to beat. Thrum. Like a heart remembering how to live. It echoes up through the stones, through the candle smoke, through the centuries to come. Walls will fall, empires will rise, The abbey itself will crumble to ruin, its name forgotten by men, but the sound will remain, patient and eternal, like the memory of something that refuses to die. In the centuries that follow, travelers will speak of this place, of strange lights beneath the floor, of whispers beneath the storms, of monks who went to draw water and never returned. They will say the well remembers. They will say something sleeps there, dreaming in the dark, waiting for the voice that once called it by name. And when the wind turns from the west, bringing the scent of peat and rain, the hills will hum faintly, a note between thunder and song. Because beneath every abbey built on bones, beneath every prayer raised to heaven, the old gods listen still. Their voices are rivers beneath stone, their memory the heartbeat beneath the cross. And though the monk will die with holy words upon his lips, a single image will follow him into death, a face of water and shadow, gazing from the deep, whispering in a tongue too ancient for absolution. Light fades, silence reigns, the camera lingers on the well, unmoving, eternal. Then, from the darkness below, one last ripple disturbs the surface, catching the ghost of the candle's last glow. Somewhere beyond the storm, another monk will find another fragment of Ogham, and the whisper will begin again. The world keeps praying upward, but the old voices answer from below. The ocean begins as a whisper, a breath against stone. Then it roars. On the far edge of the Western Isles, where the cliffs fall like broken teeth into the sea, dawn comes slow and colorless. The wind smells of salt and smoke, and gulls cry overhead, sharp, hungry sounds that vanish into the white spray. Below, fishermen move like shadows against the surf, hauling nets heavy with writhing silver. The ropes cut their palms. The waves beat time against the basalt. And in the space between each breath of wind, someone hums. A girl, barefoot, pale as driftwood, her hair tangled with mist. She stands where the tide meets the stone, her voice low, weaving through the sound of the waves like a secret thread. It is not a tune the others know. There are no words, only a rise and fall, soft as breath, ancient as grief. The men glance her way, but never for long. They cross themselves when they think she cannot see. They say her mother was Selkie-born, one of the sea folk who shed their skins to walk upon the land, half woman, half sea. And when the storms came, she would stand at the door and stare toward the waves, as though someone were calling her name. And when the wind turns from the west, bringing the scent of peat and rain, the hills will hum faintly, a note between thunder and song. Because beneath every abbey built on bones, beneath every prayer raised to heaven, the old gods listen still. Their voices are rivers beneath stone, their memory
the heartbeat beneath the cross. And though the monk will die with holy words upon his lips, a single image will follow him into death, a face of water and shadow, gazing from the deep, whispering in a tongue too ancient for absolution. Light fades, silence reigns, the camera lingers on the well, unmoving, eternal. Then, from the darkness below, one last ripple disturbs the surface, catching the ghost of the candle's last glow. Somewhere beyond the storm, another monk will find another fragment of Ogham, and the whisper will begin again. The world keeps praying upward, but the old voices answer from below. The ocean begins as a whisper, a breath against stone. Then it roars.
The girl hums, the same song her mother used to sing when the sea grew restless. The nets tighten, the fish twist like silver coins in dying light. One of the men swears he feels the pull of the tide grow stronger, as if something beneath the waves were listening. The girl tilts her head, eyes fixed on the horizon, where the sky bleeds into the water in a gray haze of light. Then the wind changes. It comes cold from the north, tasting of iron and rain. The waves hush, stilled for a breath, unnatural, expectant. Beneath the surface, something vast moves, graceful and slow. The sea darkens, heavy with silence. She stops humming. Her eyes narrow. The others shout her name, once, twice, but she does not turn. The wind gathers her hair around her like a veil. She steps forward, bare feet sinking into the cold surf, skirt trailing in the foam. The shape beneath the surface rises. At first it seems a whale, but older, stranger. Coral crowns its brow. Its flanks shimmer with green fire. Its eyes burn like molten amber, bright and patient. It circles her once, a mountain of breath and memory, before sinking back into the black. Only ripples remain, spreading like veins through the stillness. The fishermen stand frozen, the ropes slipping from their hands. The waves crash once more, hard and loud, breaking the spell. The girl turns. Her eyes catch the light, reflecting it, not with the gleam of fear, but with the color of the sea itself. That night, the village holds no laughter. The hearths burn low. Nets are mended in silence. They whisper that she called the thing, that she summoned it with her song. Children dream of black fins moving beneath their boats, of eyes watching through rain. And when dawn comes, the tide is wrong. It has pulled too far from the shore, bearing the seabed like a wound. Fish lie stranded, glimmering and still. Seaweed coils around their bodies like green rope. The air stinks of brine and something sweet, decay touched by perfume. The girl sits alone on the rocks above the bay.
Her hair is wet, tangled with salt and kelp. Her gaze drifts toward the horizon, where the sea lies unnaturally calm. She hums again, but slower now, softer, a lament instead of a lure. The wind rises to meet her voice, carrying it far over the water. And somewhere, beyond the reach of land, something answers. A low, resonant sound, like the echo of her own song, multiplied and deepened, until it feels like the earth itself is breathing in reply. The villagers who wake before dawn hear it too. They stand at their doors, listening, hearts heavy with awe. The sound rolls through the mist, not quite human, not quite storm. A choir of voices, vast and hollow, singing from the deep. They say the sea remembers every name spoken to it, and every song, that it keeps what it loves and what it takes. When the tide returns, it brings no fish, only a sealskin, pale and tattered, caught among the rocks. The men find it at dusk. They do not touch it. They only look toward the girl's empty house, where the door swings open and shut in the wind, and the hearth has gone cold.
Some claim she walked into the sea before sunrise, her song fading beneath the waves. Others swear they saw her far offshore, standing upon the water, her hair streaming behind her like a banner. The truth, if there is one, sinks with the tide. For days afterward, the ocean lies strange and silent. The gulls vanish. The air feels heavier, as though the sea has drawn breath and chosen not to exhale. And then, one night, a light appears beneath the water, green, soft, alive. It moves slowly along the coastline, tracing the shape of the shore, like a hand brushing against memory. Those who see it whisper her name, afraid to speak it too loudly. Because in the Western Isles, they say the sea has its own saints, those who were neither blessed nor damned, but remembered. And when the wind howls through the stones, carrying that strange half-song over the cliffs, the villagers close their shutters and light their candles. But a few listen, and in the hush between each wave, they swear they can hear it still, her voice, calling to something older than prayer. Something that waits beneath the black water, dreaming, waiting for the world to sing again. Mist drifts low across the glen, heavy and alive, as though it remembers the breath of those long buried beneath the stones. Each boulder stands like a sentry, slick with rain, their shadows stretching long and patient beneath a bruised and shivering sky. Somewhere between earth and heaven, the sound of hoofbeats fades into the distance, a memory, perhaps, or a ghost. By the cairn, where moss has claimed the edges of forgotten names, an old man stands waiting. His eyes, white as pearl, see nothing of the world around him, yet his face turns toward the wind as if listening to something deep within it, a call older than time itself.
A boy guides him forward, his small hand steadying the old man's steps across the uneven ground. In his other hand, the boy carries a harp, a crude thing of yew and horsehair, its frame darkened by age, its strings singing faintly when the wind passes through. They stop beside a fire that burns low and blue, its smoke mingling with the mist. The bard lowers himself to the ground, his knees creaking like old wood. The boy kneels before him, placing the harp across his lap. The man's fingers, crooked and trembling, hover over the strings, uncertain for a breath, then find their place by memory alone. He exhales, and the glen falls silent, listening. A single note rises, thin, fragile, yet in that trembling sound lies the weight of 1,000 winters. The melody grows, flowing like a river through the night, weaving between stones and heather, curling around the ankles of the people who begin to gather, drawn as moths to a forgotten flame. They come quietly, their cloaks pulled close, faces lit by firelight and longing. The bard begins to sing. His voice, cracked with years, carries the story of a hero long dead, Cú Chulainn, the Hound of Ulster. The boy has heard the name whispered before, in stories traded over ale and rain, but never like this. He was a child, the bard murmurs, when prophecy chose him. He trained beneath shadows, among blades and beasts. He fought until his name became the sound of thunder. And when he slew, he wept, for he loved what he destroyed.
The harp trembles beneath his touch. Each note is a heartbeat, each pause a wound reopening. The villagers listen with bowed heads. The wind lifts the words and carries them through the glen, over the stones that have heard this tale 100 times before, each retelling a fading echo of the last. The old man's voice deepens, his body swaying as if caught in the tide of his own song. He sings of the day Cú Chulainn faced his kin upon the field, when blood and honor became one, and the gods turned their faces away. He sings of love that outlasted death, of courage that shattered the self. The boy feels the ache of it, deep and strange, as though the tale were not history, but memory, his own. Then thunder murmurs across the hills. The flames lean toward the sound, their smoke swirling into shapes that almost resemble faces. For a moment, the villagers swear they see figures in the mist, warriors with broken shields, lovers reaching through the veil of time, all listening to the song that binds them still. The bard's hand falters, his breath catches, his voice splinters on the final verse. Still he sings it, softly now, like a confession. And when the hound fell, he tied himself to the standing stone, so that even in death he would not fall before his enemies. A silence follows, vast and heavy. It feels like the earth itself is holding its breath.
Then, somewhere deep within the harp, a single string snaps, sharp as lightning, clean as grief. The sound cuts through the glen, echoes once, and dies. The villagers do not move. Some weep openly. Others bow their heads and whisper the old prayers, half-remembered words from a time before churches, before kings. The bard lowers the broken harp to the ground. His hand rises, trembling, toward the cairn, toward the stones that stand eternal above the graves of men whose names are gone. The stones remember, he whispers. His voice is barely more than the wind's breath, even when we forget. The boy watches him, eyes wide, not yet understanding, but feeling the truth in it. He looks at the fire, at the ashes that drift upward like lost souls. The villagers begin to leave, slowly, silently, their figures swallowed by the mist, their footsteps soft upon the heather. When the last one is gone, the boy remains. He stares into the dying embers, listening to the echoes of a song that still lingers in the air. The bard sits motionless, his face lit by the last flicker of flame, until sleep or death claims him. The night grows cold. The wind turns. Across the glen, a low hum rises, faint, almost human. It threads through the stones, through the grass, through the bones of the hills themselves. The boy closes his eyes and hears it, the melody continuing without the bard, carried now by the land. He looks to the cairn. The mist moves like breath over its surface, curling between the stones as though whispering secrets. When dawn comes, the fire is gone. The boy sits alone, wrapped in silence. The harp lies beside him, one string broken, one echo remaining. The glen is pale with morning light, and the air smells of wet earth and old sorrow. Somewhere beyond the ridge, the first bird calls, a fragile, questioning note. And for a heartbeat, it sounds like the last line of the song, returning home at last.
The boy rises, turns toward the east, and begins to walk. Behind him, the wind hums through the stones, the same melody, older now, softer, carrying the story onward to whatever world still remembers. Soon another tale will begin. Snow drifts like ash over the broken stones of Tara. The wind moves slow here, burdened by centuries. It whispers through the fallen pillars and the empty halls where kings once spoke to gods. Each flake lands softly upon the ruins, upon what was once the heart of a world now forgotten. No sound of bells, no chants, only the sigh of the cold. Across the white expanse a figure trudges alone. His cloak, patched and frayed, drags through the drifts. His boots are caked in mud from far-off roads, and the leather creaks with each step.
He carries no weapon, only a bundle wrapped in faded hide, scrolls bound tight with a strip of twine. He pauses at the threshold where once stood the Hall of Kings. The wind pushes through, carrying the scent of frost and ruin. He closes his eyes for a moment, as though listening, not for the living, but for the silence that reigns in their absence. Then, kneeling, he brushes snow from the carved flagstones, tracing the ancient spirals with trembling fingers. Once these symbols were the language of power. Once this place echoed with fire and feasting, with vows shouted to the heavens. Now only the crows remain, black and voiceless, perched upon the fallen stones like sentinels that refuse to leave their post. The wanderer unbinds the scrolls. His breath clouds in the freezing air as he unrolls one, the parchment crackling like old bone. The ink is faded, the letters shaped by a hand long dead. He begins to read. The words fall from his lips like prayer, though no altar stands before him. In the age of dawn, the kings were chosen not by birth, but by fire. Their oaths were spoken to the sun and sealed in blood. They ruled not by crown alone, but by covenant, a promise to guard the soul of ire while the stars endured. His voice trembles, yet he does not falter. The air thickens, the wind stills. Snowflakes drift slower, suspended as though the world itself is listening. He speaks on, of warriors blessed and cursed, of spirits that guided men through war and famine, of the last king who walked into battle knowing his death would feed the land. The tale seeps into the ruins, filling the hollow stones with life again, faint, flickering, but alive. Then a shift, a whisper among the crows. From the archway, where shadow clings to the cold stone, a figure begins to form. Tall, still, wrapped in a cloak the color of dusk. The face is hidden, yet its presence bends the air. The wanderer lowers his scroll. His hand does not reach for a blade, he carries none. "You are late," he murmurs. The words are half a greeting, half a lament. The figure steps forward. The snow seems to retreat from its path. Around them, the crows burst into flight, a storm of black wings and echoes. For a heartbeat, the ruins blaze with phantom light. "You are late," he murmurs. The words are half a greeting, half a lament. The figure steps forward. The snow seems to retreat from its path. Around them, the crows burst into flight, a storm of black wings and echoes. For a heartbeat, the ruins blaze with phantom light.
Where there was emptiness, there are thrones again. Invisible courts reawaken. The outlines of kings shimmer through the frost. Men crowned in silver flame, their eyes reflecting both grief and glory. Their shapes are barely there, carved from the memory of stone and sky, yet their weight presses upon the heart like truth. The wanderer bows his head, his breath shakes.
He clutches the scrolls to his chest as if to protect them from the centuries that hunger for forgetting. "The words endure," he whispers, though it sounds as though he says it for himself. The figure stops before him. The voice that answers is neither male nor female. It is the sound of winter wind moving through hollow places. "The stories endure," it says. The words ripple through the air, stirring the snow, stirring the silence. The wanderer lifts his gaze. For an instant he sees what he once only hoped to believe, a face illuminated by something more than firelight, something eternal. He opens his mouth to speak again, but before he can, the light dies. The court vanishes, the kings are gone. The crows resettle on their stones. The wanderer kneels in the silence, his knees sinking into the snow. He presses the scrolls to his heart as though listening for their pulse. The wind returns, colder now, sharper. He bows his head, whispers to the void. Do they remember? Only the crows answer, their wings rustling like the turning of ancient pages. The figure, if it ever stood there at all, is gone. Its footprints have already filled with snow. The wanderer sets the scrolls upon the ground. One comes open in the wind, its ink faintly glowing, as though the words themselves burn from within. Snow gathers over them, slow, deliberate, until only faint light remains beneath the white. He rises. The frost clings to his cloak, to his lashes. He looks once more upon the ruins of Tara, upon what once was throne and sanctuary, song and silence. He turns north, where the hills are darker, where the wind smells of salt and death. Somewhere beyond those ridges, another tale waits, one that the world has tried to bury. As he walks away, the ruins settle back into stillness. The snow resumes its steady fall. Beneath it, the scrolls fade, their light pulsing once, twice, before the storm devours them whole. Yet in the hush that follows, the faintest echo lingers, the ghost of a voice murmuring through the cold. The stories endure. And as the wanderer disappears into the blinding white, the camera lingers on the stones, on the frost glinting like silver crowns, until even they fade into the storm, and all that remains is wind. A breath between chapters, a pause before the next awakening. The sea roars like a wounded god. Waves crash against the cliffs, black teeth of stone biting into the endless blue, as the dying sun bleeds its last light into the water. The horizon burns red and gold, then bruises to purple. Shadows lengthen across the western shore, where wind and salt have carved the bones of the earth into shapes older than any prayer. Here, at the edge of everything, a circle of stones stands in silence. Spirals and sunbursts twist across their weathered faces, marks left by hands that turned to dust before the first kings were crowned. Seagrass bends low in the gale. A thin fire flickers between the stones, its light trembling against the wind. And beside it stands a woman. Her cloak is gray, frayed at the hem. Her hair, streaked with white, lashes across her face. Her eyes, deep and unyielding, hold the calm of someone who has outlived the stories she came to tell. She is the last of them, the keepers of memory, the carriers of breath between generations, the storytellers. She carries no harp to charm her audience, no scroll to remind her of the words. All she holds is what remains inside her, memory, trembling yet unbroken. Before her, the sea glows, the light of the setting sun caught upon its restless skin. For a moment, it looks as though the water burns. She opens her mouth and begins to speak. The words are soft at first, nearly lost to the wind. Fragments of an ancient tongue, shaped by grief and wonder. Her stories are not for men now, but for the wind, for the waves, for whatever still listens beyond the veil of time. She speaks of gods who once walked these shores in the skins of mortals, gods who loved and betrayed, who built the world with their hands and drowned it with their tears. She tells of warriors whose swords sang in rain, who fought not for crowns but for the land itself, for the soil that remembers blood and name alike. Her voice wavers, but she does not stop. Each word seems to awaken the stones. The fire stirs, leaning toward her, as if to listen. Even the sea grows quieter, its rage turning to rhythm, a heartbeat beneath her song. The villagers once gathered here to hear her tales, before they left for safer harbors, for lives ruled by coin and cross. They told her the old stories were dying, that the wind no longer carried them, that the hills had forgotten. But she remained. She could not leave while a single story still burned inside her. The tide creeps closer now, slithering between the stones. Foam curls around her boots. The air tastes of iron and soft. She pauses, just once, and looks toward the horizon. The sun is sinking fast. The light shivers across the waves, breaking into shards of gold. She bends, feeding driftwood into the fire. The flame sputters, gasps, then steadies again. Its warmth touches her hands, cracked and trembling. She takes a breath that sounds like a farewell, and she raises her voice. Her words rise higher now, borne on the wind, a lament and an oath all at once. She calls to the gods of wind and wave, to the spirits buried beneath cairns and roots, to the hearts that no longer remember their own beginning. Her voice carries their names, the ones never written down, the ones that only the stones still whisper when the night is long. The light fades, she says, but it is not gone. The tide hisses louder, foaming around the fire. Sparks leap, caught between sea and sky. The water climbs, cold against her knees. Still, she does not step back. She reaches into the flames and draws out a brand. The fire bites her skin, but she does not flinch. She lifts it high above her head, a trembling beacon against the wind. "You will not vanish," she whispers. It is not a plea. It is a command.
The sea answers, not with words, but with thunder. The wind howls, rushing through the stones, through her cloak, through the spirals carved by forgotten hands. The fire bends toward her,
flaring bright as if fed by unseen breath. The tide rushes in. The first wave breaks against her legs, then her waist, the next against her chest. Still she holds the flame high, its light reflected in her eyes, steady, defiant, eternal. She stands unmoving as the sea closes over her, as salt stings her lips, as foam fills her lungs. The fire sputters once, twice, but does not die. Beneath the waves, it burns with impossible color, as though the ocean itself has caught light. For a heartbeat, the water glows. Then, silence. The fire is gone. The stones stand alone again, wet and gleaming under the moon's new light. The tide withdraws slowly, carrying with it embers too small to see, too bright to fade. And far out, at the rim of the world, where the sea meets the darkened sky, something still burns. A single spark floating against the endless night. Perhaps it is the last ember of her fire. Perhaps it is her soul. Perhaps it is the memory she refused to let die. The waves sigh. The wind quiets. The shore returns to silence. But if one were to stand there, in that same ring of stones, and close their eyes, they might still hear it. The faint echo of a woman's voice carried on the salt air. A voice that speaks not to be remembered, but to remind. That stories do not die. They sink and they wait. And when the world grows dark enough, they rise again. The sea moves, the horizon breathes, and somewhere in the distance, the next story begins to stir.